So here is the first set. It says in TED-CET, an entrance test for admission to management programs is conducted every year on the first Sunday of November. The test comprises 6 sections. They are AR, LR, VR, DI, RC, and QA. The test has only two types of questions in the form of MCQs, either 1-mark questions or 2-mark questions. The test comprises 400 questions, of which 90 questions are from RC. The following pie charts give the percentage-wise distribution of number of 1-mark and 2-mark questions for the last year's paper. So if you look at this first pie chart, it is telling us the distribution of 1-mark questions. That means out of all 1-markers, 10% are from AR, 20% are from VR, 15% are from LR, so on and so forth. Similarly, among the 2-mark questions, 10% are from AR, 15% are from VR, so on and so forth is for them as well. So, there is another information. There is no negative marking in the test. Mayur appeared in the last test, in the test last year and got a score of 240. His marks in DI were 50% more than both AR and VR, 25% less than both LR and QA, and 40% less than RC. So I put up all the data on one single page, have made this small table on your screen. So on this table, I have AR, VR, LR, DI, RC, and QA in the first column. This 1 represents the 1 markers. This 2 represents the 2 markers. The total is the total number of questions, and this is the number of questions or the score of Mayur. We will be talking about it. So first of all, the total number of questions is 400. Now, how many of them are 1 markers or how many of them are 2 markers, we do not know. Let us say A of them are of 1 mark each, B of them are of 2 marks each. So that means I can say the total number of questions is 400, that is A plus B is equal to 400. Also, he says 90 questions are from RC. Now, how many questions are from RC? From 1 markers, 20% of the questions amongst 1 markers are from RC and 30% among 2 markers are from RC. So that means 20% of A, which is 0.2 times of A, and 30% of B, that is 0.3 times of B, that is equal to the RC questions. So we have two equations in two variables A and B. So we'll just do one thing, solve them to get an answer. Let's multiply the second equation by 5. It gives me 1 plus A plus 1.5B is equal to 450. I'll subtract it now and I'll get 0.5B is equal to 50. That means B is equal to 100. And by putting that B is equal to 100 here, I get A is equal to 300. That means total number of 1 markers is 300. Total number of 2 markers is 100. And now we can easily calculate all of these values here. So how many questions of 1 marks are from AR? 10%. That makes it 30. 20% are from VR. That makes it 60. 15% are from LR. That makes it 45. Similarly, from DI, I have 20%, which is equal to 60. From RC, I have 20%, which is equal to 60. And from QA, I have 15%, which is 45. Similarly, when I talk about 2 markers, so they are out of 100. So 10% is 10, 15% is 15, the next is again 15, next is 10, next is 30, and the next is 20. That means total number of questions in AR is equal to 40. Total number of questions in VR is equal to 75. Total number of questions in LR is equal to 60. DI is 70. RC is 90. And then QA is 65. So from here we have got to know how many 1 markers, 2 markers, etc. are there. Now we'll start talking about Mayur. Mayur appeared in the test last year and got a score of 240. His marks in DI were 50% more than both AR and VR. That means his marks in DI were 50% more than AR and VR. That means if his score in AR or VR is, let us say, 2A, because easily then we can calculate 50% more. So his marks in DI were 3A. I hope you are getting my point. Why did I take 2A and 3A? Because if AR and VR are 2A each, DI would be 3A. We can easily calculate 50% more. It will not be in fractions. This 3A is 25% less than both LR and QA. So if 3A is 25% less than something, that must be 4A. And it is 40% less than RC. 40% less means it is 60% of RC. So RC must be 5A. So by that logic, I can say Mayur score in AR is 2A, in VR is 2A, in LR it is 4A, in DI it is 3A, in RC it is 5A, and in QA it is again 4A. That makes his total score as 2 plus 2, 4 plus 4, 8 plus 3, 11 plus 5, 16 plus 4, that is 20A, but his total score is already given as 240. What does that mean? That means A is equal to 12. And the moment I have the value of A, I have all these values, right? So 12 into 2 is 24, 12 into 2 is 24, 12 into 4 is 48, 12 into 3 is 36, 12 into 5 is 60, and 12 into 4 is 48. So now we have almost all the data to answer our question. Let's start doing the questions now one by one. Here is the first question. What is the maximum possible total marks in the test? Let's have a look at this table. The maximum possible total marks. The number of questions of 1 mark is 300. The number of questions of 2 marks is 100. So marks out of these 300 is 300, but marks of these 100 questions is 200. So the maximum possible marks is 500. So option B is going to be the right answer for question number 1. Question number 2 says, what can be the minimum number of questions attempted by Mayur in QA? I want to minimize his questions in QA. His score is already limited as 48. If someone's score is limited, you want to minimize his number of questions. You will try to get him do maximum number of questions which are of 2 marks. So if he does 20 questions of 2 marks each, that will give him a score of 40. Where from he got the remaining 8 marks? Of course, he must have done 8 questions of 1 marks as well. So 20 questions of 2 marks, 8 questions of 1 marks. That makes the total number of questions as 28. So 28 is the right answer for question number 2. What can be maximum number of 1 mark questions that Mayur can mark correctly? Let's see. So when I talk about Mayur's score in AR, his total score is 24. And if I want to maximize the number of 1 mark questions, can't I assume that all of these 24 he did by doing 24 questions of 1 marks? Yes, that's a possibility. Similarly, in VR his score is 24. So he might have done all 24 questions of 1 marks. In LR his score is 48. But in LR he cannot do more than 45 questions of 1 marks. Now, if he does 45 questions of 1 marks, they will make a total of 45, but he cannot get 3 marks by doing the 2 markers. That means he must be doing 44 questions of 1 marks each and 2 questions of 2 marks each. That way he can get a score of 48 by maximizing the number of questions of 1 marks. Similarly, in DI, he can do maximum 36 correct. In RC, he might do all 60 correct. And in QA, once again, just like LR, it can be maximum 44. So what is the maximum number of questions of 1 marks? It is 24 plus 24, that is 48. 48 plus 44, it is 92. 92 plus 36 is 128. Plus 60 is 188. Plus 44 is 232. So 232 should be the right answer for us. Yes, option C is the right answer. Here comes question number 4. In how many sections Mayur's score is at least 50% of the maximum marks of that section? In how many sections his score is at least 50% of the maximum marks of that section? Let's try doing that as well. So his score should be at least 50% of the maximum marks of that section. What are the maximum marks of AR? 30 questions of 1 marks each, 10 questions of 2 marks is the maximum score is 50. In VR, it is 60 plus double of 15, that is 90. In LR, it is 45 plus double of 15, that is 75. In DI, it is 60 plus double of 10, that is equal to 80. In RC, it is 60 plus double of 30, that is 120. And in QA, it is 45 plus double of 20, that is 85. So in how many of them he has scored more than 50%? In AR, his score is 24, which is less than 50%. In VR, it is 24, less than 50%. In LR, it is 48, which is definitely more than 50%. In DI, it is less than 50%. In RC, it is exactly 50%, and he said at least 50, so that would be counted. And in QA, his score is again more than 50%. So there are 3 sections in which his score can be more than 50%. So my answer is option 3. Sorry, option D, which is 3. And lastly, if a negative marking of 0.25 marks for 1 mark questions and 0.5 marks for 2 mark questions is introduced for AR, and Mayur attempts all the questions of the section, what is the minimum total number of questions attempted by Mayur correctly to get the same score in AR? So let's have a look at the table first. So here is the table with us. He is talking about AR, and now he has attempted all questions. Let us say he attempted R right and W wrong. So R right and W wrong questions. So total number of questions should be equal to 40 because there are a total of 40 questions here. I hope you can see that 30 questions of 1 marks, 10 questions of 2 marks. So total number of questions is 40. So R plus W is equal to 40. Also, for every right answer, he would get 1 mark. For every wrong answer, he would get minus 0.25. But if it's a 2 marker, it is, either point 2 or 0.5 negative. So if he does all questions correct, let us say he does all questions correct. So 30 questions of 1 mark, 10 questions of 2 marks will give his score as 50. Whenever he does a 1 marker wrong, his score will reduce by 1.25. Why? Currently, I am assuming he is getting 1 mark, but he will not be getting that 1 mark. Apart from that, he will be getting a negative marking of 0.25 as well. Similarly, if he gets a 2 marker wrong, right, in that case, his score will decrease by minus 2.5 because he will not get 2 marks of that question plus zero point 0.5 negative is also there. So ultimately, out of this 50, his score would be decreasing by either 1.25 or it will be decreasing by 2.5. If you closely look at this, they both are a multiple of 1.25. So can I say his score can only decrease in multiples of 1.25? His score can decrease only in multiples of 1.25. When he gets a 1 marker wrong, his score will decrease by 1.25. 2 marker wrong, his score will decrease by 2.5, which is double of 1.25. 3 questions wrong, it might be 1.25, 1.25, 1.25. Or it might be 1.25, 2.5, 2.5. It might be 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. In any case, all of them will be multiples of 1.25. But he has got a score of 24, which is 26 less than 50. So we have to decrease his score by 26, but his score can only decrease in multiples of 1.25, and 26 is not a multiple of 1.25 because 1.25 is 5 by 4. By whatever you multiply 5 by 4, you can't get 26. So by that logic, we can say he can actually never get a score of 24. My answer is option D. It is not possible to get the same score in this scenario. So that's the right answer for question number 5.